Imagine tuning your radio late at night, expecting the familiar twang of old country, only to realize you're actually eavesdropping on a symposium of quiet masterminds. Beneath the rhinestone jackets and barroom tales, a hidden league of thinkers piece together riffs and riddles with the same precision some folks reserve for chess or rocket science. Today we're cracking open that secret notebook. We're talking Rhodes Scholars disguised as drifters, math-savants who could also bend 6 strings until they cried, and outlaws who rewrote economics between prison bars. Forget the tired stereotype that country music was born only in dusty barns and dim saloons. The genre was also plotted in libraries, cockpit manuals, and boardrooms. By the end of this trip, you'll never hear a steel guitar the same way again, because you'll know the scalpel-sharp minds manipulating every note. And just when you think you've pegged the smartest of the bunch, stay tuned because the next legend might very well eclipse them all. First up is a trio who treated fretboards like chalkboards. Roy Clark didn't just co-host Hee Haw for slapstick. He solved musical equations on live television. He could swap from banjo to violin between breaths, then flip the melody upside down while grinning at the camera. Session players swear Clark once cracked a joke, sight-read a jazz chart in 7/8, and suggested a new bridge harmony, all in 60 seconds. They called it his hillbilly calculus. Chet Atkins applied that same algebra to tape machines. Obsessed with acoustics, he studied manuals the way monks study scripture, redesigning RCA's Studio B so brilliantly that visiting engineers copied his blueprint for years. Atkins decoded frequencies, discovered how to pull bass notes forward without muddying the mix, and essentially wrote the unofficial textbook for the Nashville sound. Rumor says he kept a pocket notebook filled with logarithms converting reverb decay into emotional punch, proving he was as much scientist as picker. Then there's Glenn Campbell, the quiet savant of the Wrecking Crew. Producers fed him fresh sheet music just to watch his eyes scan the page like a flatbed scanner. In minutes, he would not only memorize every note, but suggest subtle chord replacements that turned vanilla jingles into timeless hits. Between Los Angeles sessions, he reportedly worked through college math textbooks for fun, even timing his picking exercises to complex prime number cycles. When Campbell finally stepped forward with Wichita Lineman, he embedded those hidden patterns inside a country pop shell, creating a song musicologists still dissect. One archived TV Guide interview even captured Clark sketching a banjo tab in differential notation, explaining over coffee how the rate of finger acceleration created tonal derivatives that listeners feel as excitement. Atkins once hosted a backstage quiz challenging roadies to guess which frequencies harmonized with human heartbeats. Nobody won. Campbell, for his part, carried a slip of paper listing every session key he'd played that week, cross-referenced to their dominant frequencies so he could avoid listener fatigue across radio rotations. Collectively, they turned pickin' parties into physics labs, and their experiments rewired country music forever for generations ahead. Next, we dive into the wordsmiths who weaponized vocabulary like smooth bourbon. Chris Christopherson tops the roster, a Rhodes Scholar who once lectured on Shakespeare in the morning and wrote "Sunday Morning Comin' Down" before sunset. His dons at Oxford allegedly urged him to stay and analyze Faulkner, yet he preferred toweling off helicopter blades so he could drop demo tapes on Johnny Cash's lawn. That daring stunt proved more than showmanship. It was a calculated gamble based on probability theory. He figured the aerial entrance raised his odds of being heard by 37%. Standing beside him intellectually is Roger Miller, the joker with lightning syntax. King of the Road might sound breezy, but historians found early drafts annotated with linguistic puzzles and puns scribbled in the margins like coded messages. Miller once bet a journalist he could craft an entire verse using only palindromes. He won the wager, then tossed the page into a hotel fireplace because, according to the bellboy, some ideas burn brighter in legend than in ink. Behind the clownish grin lurked a mind that read Wittgenstein between sound checks. Then there's Emmylou Harris, whose angelic voice often masks a brain trained on scholarship. A University of North Carolina honors student, she kept a stack of philosophy books in her tour bus bunk, marking existential questions in neon highlighter. Her set lists were rumored to contain secret footnotes, tempo notations linked to passages from Simone de Beauvoir that matched the mood of each lyric. Backstage, she debated ethics with road managers, then walked on stage and translated those musings into three-part harmony. A declassified Army memo even claims Christopherson boosted helicopter crew morale by spicing briefings with spontaneous sonnets. Miller spent layovers speed-solving Saturday crosswords in ink, always under 3 minutes. Harris co-founded an animal refuge after reading neurology texts, arguing that certain chord progressions calm rescue dogs. Together, they proved intellect can be mischievous, compassionate, and wildly marketable all at once to audiences hungry for depth. Now we arrive at the queens of cunning, business brains who disguised boardroom maneuvers with dazzling smiles. Dolly Parton perfected that art so thoroughly, Wall Street pundits still whisper about Dollynomics. Beneath the sequins, she trademarked her own name, built a publishing empire, and turned a mountain theme park into a literacy grant factory. In negotiations, she'd flutter eyelashes, then slide color-coded spreadsheets across the table. One stunned executive later confessed her profit projections came within 1% of actuals, years before computer modeling caught up. Patsy Cline, meanwhile, navigated the male-dominated industry like a chess grandmaster. Colleagues recall her memorizing entire contracts overnight, red-penning loopholes, and returning them with a grin that dared managers to argue. She masterminded early fan club mailing lists, analyzing demographics long before data mining was cool. A Nashville publicist leaked that Klein once predicted her own chart trajectory within 0.1% using radio rotation stats scribbled on diner napkins, then celebrated by teaching the waiter percentage math. Then comes Loretta Lynn, who transformed coal camp grit into corporate foresight. Lacking formal schooling, she taught herself math by tracking tour receipts, then reinvested directly into publishing catalogs. Industry gossip claims Lynn secretly financed emergent songwriters in exchange for partial ownership of future hits, a portfolio strategy that would impress venture capitalists today. During interviews, she played the role of humble country mama, yet off camera, she debated tax codes and trademark law with visiting professors. Parton's shrewdest gambit may be a quiet clause forcing every streamer to carve pennies for her imagination library. Klein's heirs still bank from a 1962 likeness deal she negotiated when such contracts were unheard of. Lynn, for her part, once threatened to re-record her catalog unless the label returned her masters. They folded in 3 days. Together, these matriarchs proved intellect isn't measured by diplomas. It's etched in royalty statements. Think that's savvy? Wait until you meet outlaw philosophers who rewrote morality with melodies entirely. Johnny Cash opened every backstage discussion like a Socratic seminar. He carried pocket editions of St. Augustine and Dostoevsky, marking parallels between redemption narratives and the parole system. On overnight drives, he tallied biblical references hidden in blues standards, then dared the band to top him. Prior to the 1968 Folsom Prison concert, he spent an hour inside the facility library, copying rehabilitation statistics so he could lace the set with razor-sharp asides about justice. He told reporters the black suit served as a walking theorem. If suffering is constant, empathy must be visible. That single sentence later appeared in a criminology textbook, originally misattributed to a professor because academics refused to believe a chart topper coined it. Willie Nelson approaches existence like an open-source programmer. His near-photographic memory preserves every jazz turnaround he has ever heard. Then he reverses them into honey-soaked country riffs while the audience simply sways. Between gigs, he studies spreadsheets on a battered laptop, comparing farm aid revenue curves with federal subsidy graphs. Those charts later underpinned testimony he presented to Congress, where he charmed senators while outlining regression models. Backstage poker games double as probability labs. Nelson calculates pot odds faster than anyone can shuffle, and he secretly earmarks winnings for crew health insurance. Longtime stagehands insist he once balanced the entire tour budget in his head after the accountant's files got wiped, reallocating equipment rentals on the fly. The red-headed stranger may joke about cosmic vibes, yet beneath the grin he's running numbers a Wall Street analyst would admire daily. Merle Haggard converted a prison stint into a master's degree in human nature. Locked up at San Quentin, he absorbed bookkeeping from an embezzler, rhetoric from a jailhouse lawyer, and psychology from late-night poker faces. Once free, he wrote songs dissecting inflation, working-class fatigue, and foreign policy, weaving them into toe-tapping barroom sagas. On tour, his bunk doubled as a mobile library stacked with sociology texts annotated in red pen. Bandmates recall Haggard timing audience applause with a stopwatch, later graphing the spikes to refine set lists. He even filed a patent for a collapsible guitar stand after reverse engineering stage mechanics. Rumor whispers that Stanford invited him to guest lecture on labor economics. He declined, preferring roadside diners where he could test theories against real truckers over mugs of black coffee. Together they debated destiny over bus diesel, proving philosophy can thrive wherever twang, grit, and neon collide nightly. Townes Van Zandt was the genre's wandering mathematician of sorrow. Behind those haunted eyes swirled calculus questions and ancient poetry. He could quote Rimbaud before breakfast, then spend lunch calculating how many syllables a listener could absorb per breath. Friends noted he carried a small notepad filled with prime numbers which he matched against bar lines, believing certain ratios unlocked deeper emotion. During late-night dives, he'd prove the theory by playing Pancho and Lefty in asymmetric phrasing, watching drinkers pause mid-sip as if hypnotized. Yet the same mind wrestled with darkness. When rumors claimed he had once tried to off himself, he dismissed it with a crooked grin, saying the universe was just testing elastic limits of spirit. Psychologists later cited his quip as an example of existential wit masking clinical depth. Steve Earle channels that same restless intellect into activism. Between writing blistering guitar riffs, he enrolls in online policy courses, emerging from tour buses ready to debate sentencing reform with governors. He once wrote an entire album outline on the back of a parking ticket, each song title aligned with the corresponding economic metric he intended to critique. Earle claims his best melodies arrive while solving chess puzzles. His assistants confirm the green moleskin where minor key arpeggios share space with Sicilian defense variations. At rallies, he frames arguments like a lecturer, citing peer-reviewed journals, yet seasoning them with Texas drawl so the data feels like storytelling. Rumor says he nearly accepted a fellowship at Columbia's School of Journalism, but turned it down because no syllabus moves fast enough for a hungry heart. Waylon Jennings, meanwhile, was the pragmatic rebel who trusted instinct but verified with spreadsheets. He kept a pocket calculator right next to the cigarettes, tracking nightly ticket counts and fuel costs with accountant precision. Jennings challenged the Nashville establishment not just musically, but statistically, presenting bar graphs showing how creative control boosted album longevity. He negotiated revolutionary royalty splits, citing predictive models he drafted on motel stationery. Technicians recall him pausing a session to recalibrate microphone placement based on inverse square law readings he'd memorized. After concerts, he hosted philosophy circles, asking roadies whether true freedom was financial, existential, or both, and he adjusted set lists according to the consensus. That iterative feedback loop became the secret sauce of outlaw country's staying power. Collectively, Van Zandt, Earle, and Jennings turned coffee-stained diner booths into think tanks, proving rebellion can thrive beside disciplined inquiry. They smashed the notion that country intellect stops at the county line, opening doors for future geniuses strumming under neon lights across dusty highways. Buck Owens was country's sly architect of vertical integration. Long before Silicon Valley spoke of owning the stack, Owens bought radio stations, a publishing firm, and the freight trucks that hauled his records. He pored over market sheets on red-eye flights, flagging towns craving the Bakersfield sound. Engineers recall him pausing takes to discuss looming vinyl shortages. A world map in his ranch office marked distribution dots, color-coded by margin. When CBS dangled a fat advance, Owens countered with partnership points, predicting bigger gains through master ownership, and the numbers proved him right. He even installed a teletype in the studio so fresh sales data clicked through between guitar overdubs nightly. Don Williams earned the nickname Gentle Giant for his calm baritone, yet his secret edge was emotional analytics. He tracked crowd mood, noting how tempo changes altered swaying patterns. After shows, he filled notebooks with symbols, rating applause length and the ratio of couples slow dancing. Back home, he fed those numbers into a primitive computer bought solely for correlation tests. One finding, that audiences relaxed fastest when bass guitar sat 2 decibels lower, reshaped his mixes and doubled radio requests. Critics scoffed until a Smithsonian study confirmed the same effect years later. Williams just tipped his hat, already designing his next quiet experiment in the science of shared sonic breathing. Jeannie C. Riley rocketed to fame with Harper Valley PTA, but few know she storyboarded the entire marketing rollout like a political strategist. She mapped target radio stations on index cards, attaching gossip blurbs designed to spark local controversy and guarantee spins. Riley also studied behavioral economics, timing interviews with the evening commute when call-in rates peaked. Capital insiders credit her with inventing the modern country publicity stunt. She later drafted a slim manual arguing every hit must pose a moral question listeners will debate at work the next day. The memo became underground gospel for ambitious publicists and producers. Charlie Rich floated between jazz, blues, and country with the ease of a multilingual scholar. Classically trained, he once improvised a 12-tone sequence during sound check just to amuse the horn section, then switched seamlessly into swampy honky-tonk for the crowd. Offstage, he pored over physics journals, hunting metaphors for lyric writing. Producers recall him calculating exact reverb decay times to match emotional tension, scribbling formulas beside chord charts. When asked his secret, Rich winked. "It's just resonance. Physical and personal. Same laws, different hearts." He called it songwriting by natural law. Together they proved that calm calculation, not swagger, often keeps the lights on, the art evolving, and the legends immortal. Yet there is one more twist in this grand tapestry. Behind nearly every chart-topping anthem sat a quiet cabal of studio gremlins, often the very artists we've just met, who approached multi-track consoles the way cryptographers approach ciphers. In the 1970s, Clark and Atkins hosted midnight tone clinics, dissecting fresh tape formulas, recording a single riff at different bias settings, logging noise floors like lab technicians. When early digital reverb units arrived, Harris insisted on blind A/B tests, rating perceived warmth on a 5-point scale, then averaging the band's votes to choose presets by committee. Nelson later expanded the experiment, piping artificial ambience through the bus stereo and daring crew chiefs to guess whether the spacious bloom came from an arena in Austin or a silicon chip in Tokyo. He called it Guess the Ghost, a parlor game that doubled as a crash course in psychoacoustics. Their curiosity didn't end with gear. It spilled into neuroscience and marketing as the 80s dawned. Parton hired statisticians to link chord progressions with charity donation spikes, proving generosity surges 12 seconds after a dominant to minor shift. Cash funded a Vanderbilt trial exploring whether low B-flat vibrations ease inmate tension. Results were so striking that wardens piped the frequency into cell blocks for a month, citing fewer scuffles and longer sleep. Christofferson, ever the helicopter poet, teamed with game theorists to seed festival lineups like tournament brackets, maximizing suspense by tucking rookies between titans, a model now standard at Bonnaroo and Stagecoach. Decades later, the ripple remains. Millennials sample Haggard over trap beats, unaware the chords align with the Fibonacci spiral. TikTok creators quote Loretta Lynn's royalty manifestos as hustle scripture. Engineering students compare Buck Owens' channel strip scribbles to Tesla patents, marveling that twang and circuitry share logarithmic DNA. Genius, it seems, is a campfire. Each generation drags the embers forward, sparking ideas with flames left by yesterday's giants. So the next time someone jokes that country songs are simple, recall this honor roll. These 20 minds baked calculus into choruses, balanced ledgers while neon flickered, and questioned destiny between solos. They prove genius can wear a dusty Stetson, and that true intellect is measured by how long the echo lingers after the amp is unplugged. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.